Welcome to the Global Wellness HQ family of podcasts. We are your international headquarters for resources and ideas and insight in relation to the 9 elements of holistic wellness. Join us as we interview local and international wellness experts and learn how you can implement and improve one element or dimension of wellness at a time. Our experts will share their practical tips on wellness in one of these core areas: emotional, intellectual, occupational, physical, environmental, financial, spiritual, social, or habitual. We created our family of podcasts as a resource for anyone who is looking to integrate the 9 elements of holistic wellness into their daily lives. Welcome to the show.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to the show. Today, I'm excited. I have my new friend, Rob Fortier, with us. Rob, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do for your clients?
Sure. And thanks so much for having me today. I'm looking forward to this conversation. So I hope we can have a lot of fun and give away lots of great information for your listeners. So thank you for having me. So I am a copywriter and an email marketer. So I kind of specialize in the things that a lot of entrepreneurs hate, and that's writing and writing in very small spaces. So I work with coaches, consultants, authors, small businesses, anybody that wants to use email or needs to use any kind of written forms for websites or promotions to market their business. And one of the things I specialize in helping them do is really identify the biggest problems that they solve for their audiences and the solutions that go with those, how to talk about them in a way that makes sense to the rest of the world. Like, we're all very good at what we do, but when it comes to talking about it without using jargon or industry speak, that trips up a lot of people. So I help people sort of cut through that and get to okay, what's this 2 a.m. problem that I'm going to be Googling? And how do I find you to make sure that you have the solution to my problem and can, and help me out? That's what people pay for, is they pay for solutions to problems. So I help people identify those. What's the benefits? What really resonates with their audience? And how do they use their language, right? Use the language of people looking for your help as opposed to the language of the craft that you have. Because again, that can be very confusing to people outside of your industry. So that's one of my, I don't want to say superpower, but it kind of is as a copywriter, is to dial it down into language that we all use and to what language is your audience using. So it all comes down to, writing great copy. And I coach people on this who want to learn to do it themselves, but I also do it for people who just say, here are my thoughts, here are my ideas, and I write it for them. So those are the kind of 2 ways that I work with people.
Love that. And I think one of the things a friend of mine says it, I'm going to misquote him right now, but basically says 100% of your business is important to you. Less than 5% is important to the person you're messaging. And I think that's the big mistake when people say, "Oh, I can write it myself." Well, sadly, when you write it yourself, it reads like a laundry list of features. Here's what we do. Here's my credentials.
Yeah.
I hate to break it to you, nobody cares.
Yeah. That's so true. I mean, and you hit something really important on the head I want to address about features, right? We all know what's in our programs or courses or, in our businesses. And we tend to lead with that stuff of, it comes with X amount of sessions, or it comes with this amount of support, or, workbooks or whatever. And really, at the end of the day, that's the part, like you said, nobody really cares about it. They care about the payoffs, right? Can you help me fix this problem? If you can, I will hire you. I will give you money. And so it's all about the benefits. Like, if, yes, I can help you do this so that you're then able to do X, Y, and Z. And that's what really excites people about hiring somebody, because they like, oh my gosh, I really always wanted to be able to do that. And this person understands me. So I'm able to say, okay, I want to hire you. So that's a big distinction people mix up, is features versus the benefits of that. And the benefits are what really sell just about anything.
Yeah. And I think that's a good conversation. And, I work with a lot of people, and one of the things I tell them constantly is, ask the people that buy from you why they buy from you, what do they value? And like you said, a lot of coaches, they think they sell sessions. Well, nobody buys sessions. A lot of professionals think they sell time. Nobody buys your time. They want the outcome. So
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And that's difficult because I learned this very long time ago when I worked at Starbucks as a younger person 20 years ago. And that was one of the things they were teaching us to sell some of the coffee machines that they're like, it's not about like this comes with, these a picture and this. It's like this machine can make your best morning coffee without you having to leave your house. And that's like, ooh, that's exciting to me, but I don't really care
Yeah,
this machine is made out of metal or plastic. Does it do my thing? Great, then I'll take it.
yeah. And I think that's the thing, we get too wrapped up in, and my other thing is we get wrapped up in our own jargon and our own terminology,
Hmm.
when if your clients call it a thingamajigger, guess what? That's what you're gonna call it.
Exactly.
When they become clients, then you can tell them, okay, this is the, Fortune 3000 model XYZ, but
Yeah,
when
yeah.
they're just checking it out, it's a thingamajigger. So
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes depending on who you're talking to, you can use different levels of your language. If people are more aware of the problem and the solution, or they're inside your industry, so you might be able to get away with some of that. But most of the time, you really have to break it down to how they describe a problem. I coach for a group of healers and energy workers who are the most lovely group of people on the planet. Like, I adore them, but they use a lot of terminology sometimes that I'm like, that's not a problem I have. I don't have a problem with or I don't know that my like chakras or auras are unaligned because I'm carrying baggage from my past life. Like, but I know that like my back hurts and I have trouble concentrating, and I'm tired all the time. Are those things you can help me with? And like, well, yeah, we can. It's like, great, then let's talk about it from that perspective, because that's
yeah.
a real problem. Yeah. So you can get away with it sometimes depending on where you are, but most of the time, yeah, you got to stick to the basic language. And like you said, I love that, the thingamajigger. That's awesome.
And I think that's, I've worked with a lot of healers, and I worked with somebody who does specializes in concussions, and it was just ironic that she used all these big words, but one thing people who have concussions know is that we're not exactly always good at remembering big long words. And
Mhm.
it's like, I said to her as I was working with her, it'd be really handy if you just wrote this stuff down. And she's like, well, that's not how I work. And I said, well, next time I come, you're going to ask me if I did my homework. And I'm going to say, I didn't, because,
You got to meet people where they are in terms of their language, and again,
yeah,
well, like you said, with concussions, people have trouble. That's a symptom of having a concussion, is remembering stuff. So
yeah.
yeah, you got to meet people where they are and speak that language. I'm sure if she had boiled it down for you in a different fashion, it might have been easier for you to remember, but still would have been helpful if she'd written it down for you, I think.
Yeah. And so I think this is fun. We can have this conversation, but just recognizing whatever it is you do. And again, most people went to school or learned and practiced their trade or their skill or their craft. Don't expect your customers to speak your language and be at
Mhm.
that level.
Yeah. It's nearly impossible unless they are inside. You're going to a meeting where everybody does the same thing you do, then you can talk about that stuff. But I've seen it a lot in networking events, like in person, where everybody goes in the room, you get 45 seconds or a minute to talk about what it is you do, and they lead with all the things that no one's ever going to remember.
Yep.
And I'm always listening for, okay, what are they going to help me accomplish? And when they lead with that, then you've got my attention. But when you start with your name and I'm a certified whateverness, and I've helped blah 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 blah, I'm already tuned out. So, and
Yep.
that's one of the things that comes into copywriting, email marketing, and those kinds of things too, is that you don't have the luxury of dragging it out for 5 minutes. You've got to get in there and get to you know, add some emotion, add some feeling, relate to the person, but get to the point, get to the what it is you do, because otherwise, people don't read long emails, people don't often watch long videos. It's not how we function in the world of promoting things anymore.
Well, it's funny. I have a friend who is a marketer by trade. I won't name him, but he sent me, I was asking him, how would I introduce you to my network? And I'm not kidding, Rob. He sent me 14 hours of video. And he said, you can go through that and just share what you will. And I'm like, I'm a networker. I have a 30-second attention span. And at best, I'm going to remember three things about you. Go, give me those three things. And he's like, well, I don't want to put words in your mouth so you can watch these videos. And I said, thank you. I'm just going to tell people you're a marketer who likes to bore people. And he's like, but I said, that's what I remember right now. You're trying to give me 14 hours of content. You're and by the way, his thing, he teaches people how to create the 30-second elevator pitch. And I'm like, you should have led with that, not here's 14 hours. So
Yeah, that's amazing. But to your point of, he said he didn't want to put words in your mouth. Well, he's doing himself a disservice, right? You need to put words in other people's mouth because otherwise they do. I have been people who I haven't instructed on like how to introduce me. I get some of the most random introductions about like Rob's a really nice guy and he is great with projects. And I'm like, you didn't say anything about what did I actually do. I'm like, so clearly you didn't read the thing I sent you, or I forgot to send you something. So
yeah.
you're doing the introduction as a service, the person who is being introduced to you as a service, but you're also doing, that doesn't benefit anybody to have that fuzzy language. So I'm a little flabbergasted, but it's kind of like the shoemaker with no shoes, right? Like we can do this for everybody else, but we can't do it for ourselves sometimes. So it's tough. But and a lot of times people are afraid to do that because they don't want to limit who they can work with. They're afraid, oh my gosh, if I tell Jeff these three things, if somebody's outside of that, I might miss that opportunity. And really what they're doing is they're making themselves unavailable to everybody. Like you said, you're a boring marketer. So I'm not, who's going to want to hire that, right? That doesn't.
I genuinely, and I tell people this all the time, when I'm networking, give me something I can hang my hat on and go, okay, and that's the thing. I think a lot of people don't want to be that presumptuous, but the reality is, I'd rather Rob introduce Rob in his voice and using his language than come back and go, oh, Jeff, why did you do that?
Yeah. You're leaving it to chance. Yeah. That it's going to, and sometimes it works out. Sometimes it doesn't. So.
And that's the thing. I mean, you've become the expert at you. Help me connect you. Now let's change gears a little because this show is about business advice and it's about wellness. And there's a lot of, I spend a lot of time on the financial wellness side because I firmly believe if somebody hasn't figured out financial wellness, they're going to struggle with everything else. What would you say is the best business advice you've ever received, and how has that impacted you?
That's a good question. I think probably the earliest thing and the probably thing that stuck with me the longest is about building an email list from the very beginning. I've heard lots of people on podcasts I listen to talk about this, and I was told this very early on, is to start building your email list before you're ready to even need one. Because by the time, if you wait till you need an email list to start selling something or promoting a book or whatever you've got going on, it's too late at that point because you haven't had the opportunity to, first of all, build enough names to have an impact on the world or on your sales, but also you haven't had the opportunity to really develop a community of people that sort of know, like, and trust factor, who, people who are, you're showing up in their inbox like once a week or every 2 weeks, and you're adding value to their lives, right? You're teaching them something, they're giving them great information, you're probably entertaining them, you might be making them offers too, which is very valuable, but you're missing out on such an opportunity by not doing that, because it is, we always want to go for the shiny, right? In this day and age, there's so many ways to market your business. Like, what's all the cool stuff that we can do? There's TikTok and Instagram, and everybody got all whipped into a frenzy about Clubhouse, a year ago, and so how long that lasted.
Yeah.
So we want to go for those shiny things because they're cool and exciting. And you keep reading those things like email is dead and blah blah blah. Well, it's not. It's still statistically shown that for every dollar you invest in it, you can get back about $42. And that's really hard to do in this day and age with other types of advertising that you pay for, like social media ads, especially, have gotten a lot harder and harder to reach the right audience. So for me, that has been a very valuable part of my business because it's allowed me to, it's allowed me to test out some things in the very beginning, like, oh, what do people want before I build it? Let's test out this offer. Let's ask them questions, right? Let's take a survey. Let's write some articles about it and send it to my audience. And how do they respond? Are they opening it? Are they clicking on it? Are they hearing? Am I hearing from them? Because, marketing used to be this whole thing about broadcasting at people, and we're not there anymore. It's all about communication. So, I like to think of, we were talking about love letters earlier before we got on the call. The emails are a way to really ask people to engage with you. So you can, people think of calls to action as like, I have to sell you something. No, a call to action could be, let me ask you a question, or, how did this resonate with you? Or what are you struggling with? And how can I be of service to you? Hit reply and I'll get back to you. Like, I answer all my own emails personally. And when I send out an email blast, I might get a handful of responses from people. I don't get like thousands of them, but the door is open to create this relationship. People know I'm there for them and I support them. And then so when it does come time for them to buy something, I am not just person just trying to make an offer to them. I'm this person that's had their back all along, and now I've got something else that they can pay for and invest in. So I think that's a really important thing for any business to do, is really build that email list, because it's really helped me in the long run.
Honestly, I think I'm a big advocate for building relationships. And one of my favorite quotes is a Chinese proverb that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. I think one of the things, and by the way, I'm going to stress, Rob's talking about emails that build relationships and add some value. There's more going into it than, hey, I got some stuff. How many units can I ship you? Which, by the way, I get a lot of those, and it's like unsubscribe, unsubscribe. For me, I think the key is, and my favorite emails, and I wanted to hear your thoughts. I like to hear what's going on behind the scenes. I like to hear, and I'm really okay if somebody says, hey, Jeff, I screwed up. Here's what I tried. Here's what I hoped to do. Here's what ended up happening. Sorry. I think people were so tired of, oh, everything's perfect. Don't look behind the curtain. I think people like to be part of the story.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And I do that sometimes with my emails about, like you said, things I've screwed up or things I'm working on that I haven't really quite figured this out yet, but here's where I am in this process. Because people do, and social media has helped with that. Like, we see a lot behind the scenes of how stuff is made. But you're definitely right in email, people, because it makes you more relatable, right? You're a real person. Like you said, we're not this perfect, like, I'm the guru of everything. And, that's boring. And so that's an important thing about when you're doing emails, is to include your personality, right? A lot of folks have been taught to write a certain way. They think writing is proper grammar and punctuation. I got to spell everything right, and sentence structure. And, it's whatever you want it to be, as long as it's intelligible. But you got to show your personality. When you check that at the door, you become just like every other business owner that does the same thing you do. There's nothing that differentiates you, and you don't give me a chance to be like, is this person someone I even like? Would I want to hire them? Maybe. I don't, because I don't know about you, but I try not to hire people that I don't like. I try not to take on clients that I don't like, because it makes the process difficult. So, I think that goes a long way if you show who you are, the good things, the bad things, and what's happening, and tell your stories. I love to take stories about like anything and try to turn them into emails. Because it's challenging for me, but also people relate to stories. Even if they're just short, it doesn't have to be this, like, could be this adventure you had at the grocery store, or something you learned at the gym, or dropping off your kids at school. Again, back to, you're a real person, and I do lots of cool stuff, and sometimes it's not so cool, but you can always tie it back to your business, I think.
Well, and I like that comment that, work with people you like. It's so much easier than trying to get people that aren't like you or you don't to like you. Life's easier. And by the way, I'm sure you've heard this before, Rob, but I'm fascinated that when they first created the Superman character, he didn't test well because he was completely 100% perfect and he had no flaws, and the common person didn't relate to him. And then they introduced Krypton and Kryptonite, and all of a sudden he's got some flaws. All of a sudden he became a popular figure.
I didn't know. I've never heard that story. No, that's amazing, and that makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
And I'm not saying go out and air your dirty laundry, but if you make a mistake publicly, here's the spoiler alert: people know you made it. If you pretend it didn't happen, they're going to judge you worse than if you say, you know what, I screwed up, I'm sorry.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I learned that from a job I had very early on, where the boss always found out everything, no matter if you thought she didn't or not. So I learned just fess up, just tell her you did it, and it's going to be much easier to deal with than when you get that phone call the next day saying, so I heard this happened and you didn't tell me about it." So yeah, I
Rob,
learned that
is
a
there
long time
anything you
ago.
want to share about yesterday? No.
Yeah, they were like that exactly. It's like, what do you know? I'm not sure I want to share anything.
Give me a timeline. What kind of are you thinking? Because I had a bad morning, but the afternoon, wow.
Yeah, I killed it then, right?
Yeah. So I love this, and what I like is Rob and I, we both write for our clients in very different ways, but we can have some fun. One of the things I like to do is ask my guests to share some actionable tips. So if somebody's out there, what are some things they could do either to get ready to work with someone like you, or I'm going to say the obvious question is, how the heck does somebody know I need a copywriter and Rob's the one for me?
So I would say in terms of actionable items, the first one is if you're not already building an email list, go and do that. Like when this podcast ends, listen to the end. When it finishes, go start your email list. And that can be as simple as going through your contacts, going through your connections on LinkedIn, your email, all your email addresses, people you've been texting, and say, hey, I'm starting an email newsletter about whatever you're going to talk about. Would you like to join? And get their permission. So start there, start simple. Don't worry about the software and all that. Just start collecting the names, and then a couple weeks, get it set up and start emailing people. So start that today. And the easy thing to do to build, once you get going, is you can build a lead magnet. You can do swaps with other people, fellow business people, to grow your list. Like there's all kinds of ways to make it grow, but get it started. Another thing is, if you have an email list, is to show up on a consistent basis. And this is something that a lot of people struggle with. And I also get the question a lot of, what does consistent mean? For some people, they email every day. Some people email once a week, a couple of times a week. What you don't want to do is show up once every 6 months, or show up only when you need to sell something. And my bank account's empty, let me send out an email, because that's the fastest way to get people to unsubscribe. So get a blank calendar, write down a couple times, I'm going to email like every other Thursday, and I might send something, decide what you might send. Like I might do an article, I might send a resource this day, just roughly figure it out and then stick to the plan, right? Show up regularly, because that goes a long way in helping build relationships. Just like if you were going to networking events, but you went to your group only once every 6 months, as opposed to I went once a month or whenever you meet, you got to show up regularly to build those relationships. So make a plan to show up. And I would say also adopt the done is better than perfect mindset. I think a lot of people get tripped up in the, oh my gosh, it has to be a perfect certain way. It doesn't have to be a certain way. And I will tell you that I recently sent out an email with one of the worst type. I was on vacation and I had to send out a promotional email for a friend of mine. It was giving away some free gifts from a summit I had done. And I was on vacation. I was like, okay, I can just program this and then go back to the beach. I had the worst typo I have ever created in my life in the subject line of the email. I was like, that's not even a word. And the person who someone it was saw it too, and we laughed about it. But it got the most opens and click throughs of any email I've sent in the previous 6 months. And I was like, you know what? People opened it because it had a typo in it, or they didn't care. So don't worry about the being perfect. You just got to get it done out the door. And the more you do this stuff, the easier it gets. But if you save it for that one perfect email I've got to craft and then get out the door, you're just making yourself miserable and you're not helping your business. So just start learning to sort of crank it out and just being okay with, yeah, this is good enough, and send it out the door.
I love that. And one of my favorite books is Good to Great. And I love the quote in there: good is the enemy of great. People will keep going until they get to great. And sometimes you just need to be done.
Yeah.
So I love that. Now, this is the fun part. Tell me a story about a recent client outcome that you've generated, and just tell me what that looked like for you. And then I want to find out how people can connect directly with Rob and get to know you better.
Sure. So I had a client recently who was doing email very sporadically, and they weren't really putting a lot of thought, effort into their emails. They had very utilitarian subject lines, like, not very interesting. The copy was kind of like, and so, we sort of worked together, and then I ended up taking over managing their email list and, improving the headlines, improving the content, making the topics more relatable to their audience. And in one 6-week period, we increased their revenue by 7 times through their website what it had been the previous year before, just in that one section, because we were showing up more often and we were getting better open rates, better response rates, and better purchase rates through the emails. So that was kind of a huge win for this client. They were like, holy cow, like, just from showing up more often and running a little better. I'm like, yes. Sometimes it doesn't take huge mountains to see a big improvement. And that's kind of one of the cool things I like about email, is that it doesn't, you just make some tweaks here and there, and you can see a huge difference in the way your audience responds to it. But you can't just keep doing it the same way you've always done it. If that's not really working, you need to change tactics and just, like, what else can we do? How do we make this better? How do we make this a better experience for our subscribers so that they want to be involved with it and want to buy from you, right? That's the ultimate thing, is when you send out an email and you make sales, you're like, yes, this is good. I did this right.
Love that. And I think that's, I'm going to just point out for anybody listening, anything you do should be measurable. You should be able to test and tweak. And what I love about especially email marketing, and for the record, I'm not a fan of the cold, hey, I got one this morning, Rob. It was literally, hey, we have a list of dentists. Would you like to buy this list from me? And I was like, what in God's name would make you think I want a list of dentists? Like, where did you find me? And how long before you're selling me on a list of something? I love what I'm hearing with you. It's emails that build relationships.
Yeah. And you don't want to, I will tell you, you don't want to be buying lists, because especially for you, well, you should be using an email service provider, like anything from ActiveCampaign or MailChimp or one of those services. And it violates their terms of service to bring in lists that you purchase. And plus, you don't know where those names came from, how old they are, if they're even real email addresses. You want to only put people on your list who want to be there. I've seen people just add people from getting my business card. I'm like, you didn't even ask me. And so it doesn't do you any good. The more names you have, it doesn't do you any good if they're not people interested in your content. So make sure you're getting people's permission on that. But yes, and never buy the list of dentists. Even if you work with dentists, don't buy it. Trust me.
Don't buy the list. That's the part that amazes me, is the world, we're so lazy. We want these shortcuts.
Yeah.
And I always ask, would you want this done to you? Would you be okay with somebody selling your details? And so I want to stress, this is permission based.
Yeah.
These
Yes.
are people that have asked to get emails.
Yep.
Now, Rob, you are somebody I think my people need to get to know. How does somebody connect with you? How do they learn more about working with you? What's
Sure.
that first step?
So a couple things you can do. I have a gift for everybody. For people who struggle to write emails, I have a set of templates that are kind of plug and play, go from very short to more extensive. And you can grab that at nurtureemailtemplates.com, nurture email templates. And you get that for free to get emailed to you. Also, you can go to my website. It's robfortier.com, and you can email me through my website, or you can find links to my social media profiles, LinkedIn, Instagram, and my Facebook page are there as well.
Awesome. And fair to say, Rob's probably got a really killer nurturing sequence of emails. So I'm just going to go out on a limb. You're probably going to get multiple emails from Rob. Is that fair, Rob?
Yes, that is very fair. So, and you can unsubscribe at any time if you don't want them. It makes it very easy. So, and I won't be hurt if you unsubscribe. That's okay.
Actually, Rob, I'm going to ask you that question. I have some friends who, they're new to business online, and they sit on their list day, night, and they agonize when somebody unsubscribes, and it's like you've just insulted their religion and their fashion sense and whatever else all at once, and their favorite hockey team. It's like, what would you say to those people who are building the list? What's the thick skin they need coming in to talk to you?
um, I like to tell people to adopt the attitude of it's like the ocean and the tide coming in, right? It comes up and then it pulls back, and then it goes up a little farther and pulls back, and then we switch to low tide and it's going out farther and coming back in. And so think of an email list like that. It's a living, breathing thing. It's going to ebb and flow, and you don't want people on your list who aren't opening your emails, aren't responding to your emails, aren't clicking on your offers, because eventually that hurts your deliverability. Those email service providers monitor all the open rates and click rates, and they see if you're carrying a lot of people who just never open it, that's going to affect your deliverability to the people who want your emails. So it's really good every once in a while, every quarter, if you can, to go through your list and try to read people who haven't been opening, let's say in like 30, 60 days. Ask them to, get them re-engaged, get them something for free, get them on to see if they want to still be on your list, get them to, re-sign up. And if not, then ask them to unsubscribe. And if they don't, then take them off your list. You don't take them off right away. Give them a chance to stay there, because you never know. Somebody just had been busy. They weren't opening your emails. But you don't want people on your list. You want to be like, see ya, because they're never going to buy from you anyway. If they don't open your emails, or they just signed up for that one free thing that you gave away that was awesome, they're the tire kickers. When I worked in the greeting card and gift industry, we did trade shows, and people who go around and get all the free samples from every booth, we used to call those the prize pigs, because they would just collect everything. And people do that with lead magnets and guides and free classes. They don't ever use them, and they're never going to buy from you. So wave them goodbye, say good luck, and let them go, and just release it. It's just part of the cycle of having subscribers, is they're going to just unsubscribe.
Love it. And I want to thank you for that, because I think that's one of the things, everybody hears more is better. And it's like, no, no, no. I'd rather have a small list that responds to me than a big list that ignores me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you one quick thing about an author that I worked with, and she hired me very late in the game to help her promote her book, who was coming out. And she had an email list of 100,000 subscribers that she never emailed. And she's like, oh, and I want to do a book launch. I'm like, I can only be responsible for the copy I produce for you. I cannot be responsible for the results you get on an email list that you've never nurtured. And so I'm not really quite sure how that went. I think she thought she was going to sell thousands of books, and I'm not quite sure she sold any from that campaign. So, yeah, it's 100,000 people didn't do her any good. So,
Well, and that's the thing, like a list, however you got that list, fell off a truck, you bought it, you built it. If you've never communicated with them, I mean, it's, the equivalent of, going out and just saying, hey, you want to buy my stuff, buy my stuff.
right.
You got to be damn lucky to find somebody that happens to be sitting there on the corner waiting for someone to come and sell them something. I mean,
Yes.
I don't know about you, Rob, but that's not how I make decisions. And
No, me either.
like, oh, I was just sitting here waiting, wondering when somebody would bring this by and sell me a widget or a thingamajig or what you call it. So
Yes, absolutely. It doesn't work that way. But again, we get into our head about like our stuff's great, but it's only great if people are invested in it and they know about it and they've experienced you. That's what makes it great, is that they're tying it back to you, and you're delivering on your promises, of course, as well.
awesome. Well, Rob, I really want to thank you. This was a fun conversation. I love talking about anything to do with building authentic relationships, and I really appreciate your insights today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you for taking the time to listen to our show. We hope that you enjoyed this episode, and we invite you to either click the link below or scan the QR code to register and listen to other episodes of our podcast. Or if you think your business or you would be a great guest to be on our show, we're always looking for experts in one of the 9 elements of holistic wellness. We'd love to have you. You can either click the link below or you can scan the QR code and complete our speaker intake form. Thank you, and to your wellness.